So, welcome everyone to another episode of Live ACIM. I just want to share, it's always a miracle, this being able to come together. There's always a lot that comes in the way just before the mind can open and come into this space together of innocence and prayerfulness and playfulness. And yes, it's no small feat to get here, including for us every week. There's a great healing always goes on so that we can all be here and present with you. So, on that note, as everyone's getting their seats, I see you all. It's so lovely. As everyone is getting settled in and sitting, it feels really nice to just take a moment to drop in, just get really acquainted with being in presence together again, and then just to clear off all of the questions of the week and even the ones you've written in, and just sink into the answer, which could come from such an alternative direction and sweep you off your feet. Prepare to be embraced by the Spirit. So let's just take a moment to drop into prayer together, and I'll ring a bell at the end just to call you back. We've had so many beautiful reflections this week of what's occurring in the mind. And I've had a few conversations with new people who were feeling into whether they join us or not. And they were asking what it was we were doing together. And the more I sat with sharing that with them, the more it became clear, even in a descriptive way. Whereas for all of us, it's arisen organically what we're doing together. And that really it's a prayer for the one mind that we share. We're joining in a prayer for that one mind that we share, that is who we are, the one watching, the one awakening, the one looking with the vision of the Spirit. And that's very different from joining for a group of people who want to figure something out together. It's just a very different orientation. And even though that clarity was given to me in a non-verbal way as we began, it's actually an incredible sense of grace for me to watch that unfold, and the difference of the feeling it gives to the joining, to be clear on that unified purpose of accepting the one mind that we share, and that is the truth of who we are. And of course, it's always an identity confusion that has us upset, distressed, and questioning. And so I love that we clear the questions on our heart before we come, hand them all over to the Spirit so that we can sink into the answer that will allow us to remember that one mind, to remember ourselves, that one self, and not get mesmerized by all the little characters on the screen, all the seeming separate selves. And that's really where all of the conflict and what I would call tension comes from, is from the illusion of the multiplicity instead of the vision of the Spirit and the singularity of seeing one in front, one illusion, one painting. The more we focus in on the multiplicity of colors and shapes and name them as objects and people and things and plants and animals and scenes, the more we get distracted and carved up, the more we lose the name that was given to us, the more we lose our birthright. And so we always speak in the affirmative here of going back into what is for us. That clarity of what is for us just relaxes the mind like a soft focus to be able to see that singular purpose out front for peace now. And this week, that theme of tension in the mind arose several times. And I even came across a biblical passage where they were speaking about the tension that many Christians face between the idea of being with God now and preparing the way for an idea of the second coming, and the tension of that it's not already here. And we follow a path that collapses that tension, that goes for present peace, not future salvation, that goes for present joining in Christ, not a future coming back together of two things that were apart. And the grace of that has really been blessing me in every moment, because when I've been feeling tension, I've been allowing myself to notice that split, that idea that in a moment, peace could be restored, instead of allowing peace to be as it is right now and restoring my awareness to it, instead of getting focused on the screen. And it's been quite a week of opportunities to do so. So I'm very grateful for all of those. So I have the words here that I just wanted to share about that. Yes, so the term they used was not yet. Not yet. and that tension of an idea of allowing and building something, and some proactive sense of a personal sense of doing or contributing to something, and the tension of understanding that really only God can do anything, is the tension that they were alluding to. And for us, of course, that's being collapsed by the understanding that everything is the past, and that the second coming of Christ is not something that is happening external in a world, is not part two of a restoration of salvation. It's simply the acceptance that salvation has already happened. And that's very important for the way the answers are coming through today, that we have that context for our mind, that everything is the past, and that salvation is. It's already happened. There's nothing to be saved from a mistaken idea. And so acceptance that everything, should there have ever been anything needed, 4 steps towards forgiveness has already been accomplished by Jesus, then we can relax our mind back into our one function, which is acceptance. So we're going to use the word acceptance a lot today, and one mind, and holiness, which for many of us feels sometimes like an alien concept. But the way we're going to speak about it today, I think you'll see it's a very natural state for you in truth. And only our resistance to seeing ourselves that way is what's pausing us from acceptance in every moment. So I'd like to start with 2 separate pieces. One is from The Link to Truth, and it goes like this. It cannot be that it's hard to do the task that Christ appointed you to do, since it is He who does it. And in the doing of it, will you learn the body merely seems to be the means to do it. For the mind is His, and so it must be yours. His holiness directs the body through the mind at one with Him. Perception is a choice of what you want yourself to be, the world you want to live in, and the state in which you think your mind will be content and satisfied. It chooses where you think your safety lies, at your decision. It reveals yourself to you as you would have you be. And it is always faithful to your purpose, from which it never separates, nor gives the slightest witness unto anything the purpose in your mind upholdeth not. Means and end are never separate, and thus you learn what seems to have a life apart has none. So that's from chapter 25, The Link for Truth. And it's very important that in coming into this state of acceptance, we first must accept where we've been mistaken. You can't accept if you're not seeing and witnessing to the mistake. You can only accept the correction when you're relieved that you've been mistaken about everything else. And so our goal today together is to be relieved and glad that we've been mistaken about everything else. At every moment, it's amazing, we're choosing what it is we would like to see. We spoke 2 weeks ago about the messengers of fear that we might be sending out that are giving us reflections. And then the messengers of love, which can be substitute for the messengers of fear until we see there is only love. And this is very important, because without this, there is a feeling of being subject to the world. And many of the questions that we have today, they're beautiful questions, really come from that frame of reference where we feel like separate, small individual selves subject to the world. And we are doing our best to be responsible and take care of what seems to be on our plate at any one time. And it comes from a sense of care and a sense of love and a wanting to be responsible. And yet, when we're not clear on what we're responsible for, anything can happen. And again, we've lost our purpose. So I'm going to begin with some of the questions because they really help hone the mind. Hi, Sarah. A member of the family is going through a rough time with depression. It is very distressing to see this person struggling with something so difficult and debilitating. None of the medications seem to be working. Counseling doesn't seem to help. He has problems with fatigue and lethargy. We all feel quite helpless and afraid and worry about how long it will last. He also worries about how long it will last. I feel led to concentrate on lessons 35 and 39, which are around the ideas that I am holy and my holiness can heal, especially lesson 38. In the situation involving depression, in which this person sees himself, there is nothing my holiness cannot do. And yet I feel like it's not working either, because it seems he's not getting better. So then I end up questioning the lessons and questioning God and my power to heal as well. As the whole idea that there is nothing my holiness cannot do because the power of God lies in it. What am I missing here? So that's a wonderful question. And for all of us, I'd really like us to peel back off any sense that this is a question another has and really accept it as a question we all have when we come up against anything where we imagine it should be different from how it is. So just for a moment, I'd love everyone to just close their eyes. And sink into that space where we notice something's occurring in our life and it feels very true that it would be better if it was different. Thank you. So we're going to be addressing all of the seeming questions that seem to be coming from individual people in the round today. It's going to be a circular answer where we just unwind the mind back to a gentle, not knowing, not understanding, and not being afraid of the answer, knowing that peace is all that's being offered, and gentleness and kindness and love, and even for the seeming small creature self, relief. The promise is we're going for this sense of peace, or as I like to share, relief in this moment. Okay? So don't strain for an answer. So I have a little piece here, and this is from lesson 35, actually, in the workbook. My mind is part of God's. I am very holy. Because in the very first paragraph, it addresses the shift in our looking that's needed. Today's idea does not describe the way you see yourself now. So this holiness that we're speaking of is not how you see yourself now. It does, however, describe what vision will show you. And there's that tension, as if there's a gap between the two. It is difficult for anyone who thinks he is in this world to believe this of himself. Yet the reason he thinks he is in this world is because he does not believe it. You will believe that you are part of where you think you are. That is because you surround yourself with the environment you want. Now, this may seem challenging to hear if you're experiencing the environment around you as hostile in some way, or negative, or dull even. And yet, this is the acceptance of the mistake first, so we can accept the correction and be happy and relieved that we're going for. And nobody will be left feeling wrong. Mistaken isn't a feeling of being wrong, it's a feeling of just a ridiculous sense of how could I ever have thought that, and relief. It's not a wrongness like with a shame or a blame attached to it, or I should have done it different, or I wish I'd known sooner. It wouldn't be better if it was different. It wouldn't be better if you'd heard any of this a moment sooner. There is no other moment, there's just now. Okay, so we want to stay in innocence as we listen. Perfect, whole and complete. And you want it to protect the image of yourself that you have made. The image is part of this environment. So the Spirit is saying that you cannot separate the image from the environment, the concept, the self-concept of who you believe yourself to be from the environment it's in. The environment is there to support and uphold the self-concept. Even if you experience it as ripping it down or in conflict or against, that is reinforcing certain aspects of the self-concept that are integral to maintaining it as real. And struggle is the best form of maintaining something as real. Love just collapses everything. That's why we spend most of our life in struggle. If it was all sweet and lovely, like they say in the Matrix, everyone would just wake up straight away. So that's why you only awaken from happy dreams. And today we're going for a happy dream scene of seeing that there isn't you and other and against, or any tension here in reality. What you see while you believe you are in it is seen through the eyes of the image. So Jesus is describing you as the image, the character sense of self. So if you want to even picture where you're sitting right now, seemingly in front of a computer with Sarah on the screen and lots of other little boxes, you're relating through this image of yourself that isn't who you are. This is not vision. Images cannot see. The only one that is seeing anything, even this delusion or Maya in front, is the one watching, the one who can awaken, and it is not a person. People are not holy. People do not awaken. So you can feel relieved of judging this little sense of character self, this image that you've made, as not being somehow holy enough. Just need to step a little further back off the screen to see the big picture so that you can really activate that holiness in your awareness and embrace it. This is the tiny tweak that Jesus just loves giving us so that we can step into our magnitude and our function of forgiveness, our function of acceptance, that everything is the past and already healed and done, and that there is nothing for us to do except soften into the acceptance of that where it is, in a sensation of like back there, rather than a grabbing and a getting and a fixing and a crossing our fingers and hoping it works out well in the end. It's just a very different orientation. In the earlier part of the mind searching period, you will probably emphasize what you consider to be more negative aspects of your perception of yourself. I see myself as failing. I see myself as failing my brother. I see myself as not good enough. I see myself as not holy. whatever way you're thinking of yourself today, those are the aspects that we focus on in this particular type of lesson. And yet, every day, it's how we see ourselves. Toward the latter part of the exercise period, however, more self-inflating descriptive terms may well cross your mind. Try to recognize that the direction of your fantasies about yourself does not matter. There is no positive or negative here. It's just the idea that you're a person is the restriction. Illusions have no direction in reality. They are merely not true. And again, this is the relief. This is the relief. And we're going to go the whole way through using this question and the other questions that have come to us into a state of mind that just offers us the answer, you know, that capital A answer. Because my mind, it even uses a but, which is rare in the course, but my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. So holiness is an inherited state. It's Christ awareness. It isn't a personal state, which is a great relief. Persons don't awaken. Persons will never be happy. Just to be clear, never. Persons will never be happy. They'll look like they have up days and down days and up days and down. Persons, it's a mesmerism. So we couldn't possibly exemplify happiness. So the contentment that we're looking for, the acceptance that we're looking for, the soft bubbling joy and love that we're looking for is all an internal experience of being the one watching, of being the mind, of being Christ. As often as possible during the day, pick up a specific attribute or attributes you are ascribing to yourself at the time and apply the idea for today to them, adding the idea in the form stated above to each of them. If nothing in particular occurs, you merely repeat the idea yourself with eyes closed. But my mind is part of God's. I am very holy. And I really like to remind everyone that it's the Holy Spirit's convincing job. You're not to try and find a mechanism by which you can convince yourself of something you don't believe. You simply bring your unbelief to the Spirit. That lovely list of, well, I see myself as. I see myself as unwell. I see myself as sick. I see myself as a kind relation. I see myself as a good grandmother. I see myself as someone who wants to help. I see myself as a good course student. I see myself as a good forgiver. All of those descriptions, no matter whether they appear to be on the good or the negative side, are all descriptions of a person. And that image does not see holiness. So we can't conceive of ourselves as a person and see holiness. We're being invited to conceive of ourselves as Christ. There's the second coming. There's the rebirth of awareness of the truth of who you are, to conceive of yourself as Christ. And you're not asked to pretend or fake it till you make it or push it out front. You're merely asked to sink back into something that's true of you, that you've not been leaning on or trusting in, just to see how it feels, a movement into that experience, because it's just longing to meet you where you're at and swaddle you in clothes and lay you in a manger of light and bright so that you can receive and experience the light of the world, the truth of who you are, without leaving the bed. Nothing is needed of you in this world. There's no one to save or help. There's nothing exterior to drive you. You may be compelled to go out and share and shine, but it will be coming from the joy of that being, from that rebirth inside your own awareness. It's not coming from an external call that's needing of you. It's just an effervescent desire to give and extend that will come through you. That's the state of holiness. So with the next few questions, we're going to look at where it can seem and appear that things are misaligned or out of whack or unwell in awareness, we can see where healing in mind is still needed. I'm inspired to ask for further clarity on forgetting one's function. Forgiveness, yes? As ACIM suggests, in response to illness or any other insightful lessons and ideas to integrate the same. So that's the request. So our friend had a wonky bone marrow aspiration a few years ago, which she feels she's not very identified with, that she still doesn't really believe it. And I'm a first-year ACIM student, though many years in various meditation groups and healing practices. And this is actually very, very important, which we'll get back to in a minute. So many miracles happening these days. And what I feel has been holy guidance since doctors have shared their opinions, have declined the briefcase of pharmacology, quit the job that was not in alignment, and left the moldy apartment to care for a friend's peaceful home on the lake. So this one has a call, not just for peace of mind in the moment, but is willing to do the practical application that may be called, and the shifts in form that seem symbolic for the shift in awareness that's already occurring. Spirit also guided towards a vegan paleo food choice, a functional MD, certain supplements, care for this gift of a body, Joe Dispenza, ACIM. And then one of the questions is, can Spirit guide food choices, supplements, etc., if none of that matters? Last night's blood tests revealed that critical numbers are slowly rising, as somehow I knew they would. I recently read an ACIM student's letter to themselves and resonated with the he now scans through his day looking to see if there's anything else to forgive. Love this, and also curious about further insights. Open to all you have to share. So I'd like everyone to take a moment to just bring to mind into their awareness anywhere they are actually really trying to do their best, where they've broken out of the mold in which they've been living and they've stuck it to the spirit and they're saying, show me. And yet something seems to be a little amiss in the being shown. Somehow the softness and the peace is not yet coming in. And this slow, dull disquiet arises, a slight fear that maybe we're not doing it right, or there's something more we could be doing, or that we're not getting it right. And again, it's like I see myself as not doing it right. I see myself as trying hard. I see all of our lists from before for holiness. So just really orientate to that for a moment, because it's really helpful to look at all of this together, because we're doing this together. Anywhere there's a frustration or a like, I really just don't get it, why this keeps happening. I have no idea why this keeps happening. So I'm going to read just a tiny bit from lesson 135. If I defend myself, I am attacked. Who would defend himself unless he thought he was attacked? That the attack were real and that his own defense could save himself. And herein lies the folly of defense. It gives illusions full reality and then attempts to handle them as real. It adds illusions to illusions, thus making correction doubly difficult. And it is this you do when you attempt to plan the future, activate the past, or organize the present as you wish. Now that's what we do every single day, no matter what our circumstances. This is not a rare occurrence. This is what we expect being responsible to be. And so the Spirit is really inviting us to peel back from our idea of what we're supposed to do to be responsible. And for a moment, and I really mean a moment, just one moment, it's risk-free to pause and say, what if I don't know what it means to be responsible, even for myself? What if I just don't know? I have been trying so hard. I've been doing so good. I have welcomed all types of input, and yet something still seems to be missing. And today we're going to look at that tweak in the mind for what's been missing and what's been having that tension there, that very slight fear feeling. Might it be completely minimized and down low, that I'm doing it wrong, that I could get it wrong, that I could mess it up, and it would be my fault. You operate from the belief you must protect yourself from what is happening because it must contain what threatens you. A sense of threat is an acknowledgement of an inherent weakness, a belief there is danger, which has the power to call on you to make appropriate defense. Defense is frightening. It stems from fear, and we've talked about the maintenance of fear by not fully looking at it, that continues. Increasing fear as each defense is made. Whew, I got through that one. Okay, we got past that now. Hopefully the next thing we'll be okay with, but again, it's not fully been looked at where the fear is coming from, the conditions that are underlying the fear that Jesus says he can help us with, but he can't help us with the fear itself, can only help with the conditions, the beliefs and the desires in the mind where the fear is stemming from. You think it offers you safety, the defenses you come up with, yet it speaks of fear made real and terror justified. Is it not strange that you do not pause to ask, as you elaborate your plans and make your armor thicker and your locks more tight, what you defend and how and against what? So I do recommend that all of you read lesson 135 in the vein in which we're looking at it today, because it really unearths this idea of true responsibility and the holiness one of true responsibility for sight and vision with the Spirit, because images do not see. So I want you to step back from the question. I want you to step back from the life-threatening feeling of both questions, the imminent need to do something, to help, to fix something, to address something, because the urgency is for the miracle. The urgency is for the pause for prayer and getting clear on even what you're praying for and why. And that only comes if we step back into this sense of self that's watching. So as we watch our friend by the lake, or we watch our friend looking at the depressed relation who seems to be becoming fearful that he's not the way he used to be, I want you to step back a little further and just watch them for a moment and see and witness to all the love in these scenes, all the trying and, the heartfelt doings and the strategizing and the coming up with ideas of what might work. And now I'm going to invite you back into a different state of awareness, into a different way of seeing. And so my question is, why would I want it to be this way? And there is an affirmative answer for that. Why would I want it to be this way? Look in innocence with us right now at why we would want it to be this way. What does it give us? What does it reinforce in our self-concept? even if it's that I'm good and kind and worrying about someone, even the idea that that's an attribute that I would want to maintain. Any ideas that I am responsible for this body or that body, that this body should be a certain way, that health looks like something in form, whereas all healing is in mind. So just take a moment to look at that. So we have the belief that it should be different, that it's somehow ideal that it would be different. Now, if you looked in a mirror in this moment and you were about to go out, and maybe you're going out to a wedding or some kind of celebration where you're dressed up looking your best, and you look in the mirror and you see a big splodge of mustard all down your tie or your dress, do you want to get angry at the mirror and go over and start scrubbing off the mustard, saying, this bright yellow, it's not part of the look, it's not part of what we're going for. Bright yellow, that's not the look. That brownish mustard, that's not the look. We're not going for that. I don't want it to be like that. It shouldn't be like that. I'm not going to have a happy day if it's like that. And if we put all our focus on the reflection that's letting us know that we already feel that way, that we're already disturbed and upset and feel things are wrong, or that we're wrong, or something's out of place, then we can't really take the communication yet. We can't actually even get a napkin and wipe the mustard off our own chest, because we're not seeing it as something we have any power over. And I feel in our holiness question about our depressed relative that that is the call. Where is my power? I really do want to activate it in the affirmative. And we're aware from the Course that we can't direct our miracle impulses because we'll misdirect them. And so we can't choose how and where miracles occur. And yet miracle mindedness is totally our responsibility, is our availability. But it doesn't mean it looks like we do miracles out in the world, because you can't. You can't have miracles done through you if there's fear. And so Jesus reminds us in the Course again that it's the fear, the contraction, and the minimizing of that fear. He says, you need to be without fear, at least for a moment, for me to perform miracles through you. And so we must come back to our looking. There's an image seeing here, as we read from lesson 35. We're seeing an image, an image's idea of the world. And so we must come back to the vision of the Spirit to look upon the one by the lake and see that there is nothing wrong with the image. And we can look at the one with their relative and see there is nothing wrong with the image. There's nothing wrong with a look of lethargy or someone desiring to sleep a lot. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. Because until we stop the frightened, as we've talked about, like panic patting down, of the fire, until we can do that, we can't really be utilized to come into the answer. And the answer is for yourself. The answer is first and foremost like a sense of relaxation and relief of what is, as Byron Katie says, what's your business and what's God's business? I like to say, what's the Spirit's business? You have to come into a sense of that God's business is all you want to be concerned with. And God's business is just loving you. So you're coming into an acceptance of that love. And anytime we keep orientating to the images that are telling us fearful thoughts, then we're not looking with the Spirit. So that's the first thing. So I'm going to read us one more question, because the answer, as I'm coming around to it, all ties in together. You see, even though these seem like very different kinds of questions. Even though I have found many ways to let go and trust Spirit guidance, There's one area that puzzles me. I am in conflict as I have a desire to be closer to family and grandchildren. But at the same time, I'm not being guided to leave where I am, which is a good 5.5, 6 hours away from them. This thought system creates a sense of not being grounded in either place. How can I see this differently? And again, we're seeing through that image's eyes, that little one on the screen that we're watching. We're seeing through that mustard stain. We're just seeing this blotch of browny yellow goo, and we're just longing to get rid of it. Except the blotch of browny yellow goo that is showing up on the screen, that's showing us a discomfort about ourselves and how we look and how we feel we're coming across in the world, is actually there to make us aware of that fear already being present, aware of that misalignment in our own mind, and aware of that misidentification of who we are. That's all it's for. What if you could see everything that seems to be happening before you or even to you and around you as symbolic, and not at all anything that says anything about you? It doesn't describe your state of mind. It doesn't say you're doing good. It doesn't say you're doing bad. Now I have one defining example that will bring that swiftly into your awareness. Because what does an example of someone being nailed to a cross say about the person? The answer is, it doesn't say anything about a person. It doesn't say anything. We're all here trying to perfect and show up glowing and well-being and some image making that we're doing all the time. And yet the defining image that we were given, which is in fact the resurrection, but symbolically seems to move through what looks like a crucifixion, we're still trying to get the storyline to look good. And that's the wrong emphasis, because the relief cannot come from anything you're going to see on the screen. The relief can only come from seeing, a bit like the holiness in lesson 35. There isn't a good or a bad. I see myself as on a cross, or I see myself as resurrected even. That's still a personal. There isn't anything good or bad between the two of those. It's just not true. None of it was you, ever. None of it was you. And you're being invited to just be relieved of this intensity and this tension of focusing on the person and their performance, and to peel back further into the relief of seeing you're not that one. And so we're moving our way gently towards that, okay? So you can relax and trust that we're coming there. It doesn't have to be clear yet. You just have to be mildly curious and open to seeing, well, I don't believe that, so show me how. And that's what the Spirit's hoping to do. Fourth question. And this, again, the answer is the same for all of them. So this is why I really love that we're taking this weather report for the mind, because in exposing what's happening in the mind, everyone here, whether you seem to have written in a question or not, is hearing the same answer to the problem as it appears to happen in their lives. Or it may even seem to correct a perceptual problem or a distress or an intensity that they've had seemingly in the past. But this moment is the holy instant to awaken from that mesmerism of then and now. It's all happening now. It's all possible now. There is no other moment. Short version is, I keep going back to the same very painful fear experience over and over again. I fear people will see I am a liar and a fraud, that I don't know how to forgive, that I think of myself as worthless, even though I represent myself as, I can do this, whatever that is. I have fear of having the unworthiness come up in situations. Therefore, I want control of my emotions so I will not embarrass myself. And the fear of saying no, and the end of fear of consequences. Hurting others is still playing. Again, with how will they see me? projecting attack of others, getting angry with me, or being displeased. Yeah, I'd like to share something about my own experience that relates to all of these. When I was in my very early 20s, my late teens, I suffered extreme depression. And at one point, for a whole year, I didn't leave the house. And I came from a very loving family that were very open to getting me help and support and whatever I might need, talking to me, talking about how I felt, being, you know, accepting of whether I needed to sleep or whether I was willing to get up and speak or do things with them, bringing me to different psychologists and psychiatrists and counselors for support, medication. That one didn't work, next one. That one didn't work, next one, through reams and reams and reams of things. And at one point in the middle of all of it, I had this deep experience of kind of a flatlining with the medication and the sense of deadness and dullness that was there. That was actually more than with the depression. And I was just sitting looking out the window at some little animals or something, and I thought, even in nature, as it goes, wild as it is, life, up and down, there is an up. It's not a flat line. There's an up and then there's a down. And I suddenly realized I was missing even the most natural of up, the most natural of little uplifts. And it was all because what was happening and what was being provided for me was gearing me to be at a maintenance level of something, an external decision of a maintenance level of what I should be. And that was based solely on how I could contribute to society and function as I had, or at least similar to, in the past. Now, you can hear there's a whole lot there that when we start to look at that deeper does need to be questioned. And this is not about demonizing any form of medication. It was a realization I was having inside myself that I was trying to orientate to something that was a very low bar for myself. And not that I was striving for anything higher, but there was a struggle even in the being with the low bar. There was a tension there because it wasn't true. Even in a natural state, it wasn't true. And I feel that that's what we're all doing. We're all trying to come to some maintenance level of that image, of how it's seen, of how it operates, of how it is, whether it's respected or loved, some maintenance level. So whether your dosage is of grandchildren, whether your dosage is of, quiet prayer time on your own or meditation. See, there's no wrong or right here. Whether your medication is in helping people or making yourself available to be a helpful person, it doesn't matter. We do want to see, though, the maintenance of something that is keeping us from hitting rock bottom. Rock bottom of how that perception of ourself could never satisfy, how that image could never satisfy. And I really feel until you allow yourself in the mind, and that's why they talk a lot in the course about facing that deep self-hatred, until you really allow yourself to start to look without the maintenance, like the methadone program, until you start to allow yourself to really look, you're not even looking in the right area for what needs to be addressed and what needs to be taken responsibility for, because you're not responsible for the error. You're only responsible for the correction. But until you accept that there's been a mistake made in the focus of where you're looking for your orientation and for your reflection of who you are, then you can't really hand it over to the spirit to utilize. And this is very important. Whatever you've been using to maintain your self-concept can still be used to free yourself from your self-concept. So with all of these questions, it's who does this make me? What does this say about me? This story, what does it say about me? And we are much more comfortable with trying and struggling and doing our best than we are with surrender and giving up and acceptance that we have no control over the world. Because that feels futile, that feels disempowering, but that's only a story. So the minute I had that awareness in my own mind, the very next counselor I was sent to kept saying to me, yeah, but I don't see what's wrong with you. I don't see it. I don't see anything wrong with you. The very next counselor person I was sent to. And then she said, I think I'd find it really hard to talk to you anyway if you're still on like these medications, because you wouldn't actually be having an emotional response to even the questions I was asking you. And I was there going, yeah, I didn't really want to be on these anyway. But I just wanted to feel better. I just didn't want to feel the distress and the hatred and the attack that was coming. So all I was having was awakening symptoms. The world I'd seen through it was not working. And I was unable to acquiesce and just go along with it as everyone was asking. And this was described as depression. And it's our inability in the moment, which is totally okay, to be able to face that level of self-hatred and attack and awareness that's coming towards us, because we're no longer willing to comply, that actually needs to be looked at. And everyone in these questions is having that moment. Everyone who's written in is having the moment where they're like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I can't even seem to just go see my grandchildren and feel better. It doesn't work. So I'm still living 5 hours away from them, because it's not going to be enough to maintain it anymore. Nothing is going to be enough to deflect from the awareness. And remember, this only has to be faced in a moment. It doesn't have to prolong over a long period of time, this self-hatred, this looking with the spirit at it. It's like looking at the fear. Once you look, it goes, because you've seen its lack of validity and its lack of value to you, as we've spoken of. So in that moment, we all have this choice now. It's like, I could just put my focus on when I feel ready. And this is very important. Okay. Remember, I give myself a whole year in bed. When I feel ready, and this is totally up to you with the spirit. This is not, it would be better if you did it now or force it or anything. When I'm ready and I feel safe enough, and I want to turn to look at the reflection of self-hatred that's coming towards me, when I'm willing to look at that, when I feel stable enough and safe enough in my mind, then the things that seem to be disturbing me will also disappear simultaneously, because they're just a reflection of that need to look at that intensity and self-hatred and postponement of acceptance of the truth of who I am. Now, you cannot do it to get rid of the symptoms, because the symptoms and the intensity are, again, just keeping the focus on what needs to be looked at. And yet you're not to be in pain. If there are painkillers available, that's wonderful. If there's a lovely doctor that you get along with that's person-centered rather than just trying to cure symptoms, wow, what a holy encounter. That's wonderful. That's exactly where you should be spending your time, and having a chat saying, you know what? I come to you here, and I just like to share with you what my purpose in coming to you is. My purpose is to find out how all of this mistaken idea of myself is really interfering. I'm sure you're tired of all your your patients and clients coming in here looking for you to fix them, when really you're sitting there, you don't know either, but you are open to joining with them. And I just like to blow the lid off this as I do it and tell you what I'm about. You know, I spent a time with a friend of mine who had been diagnosed as possibly dying within 3 days, then was given 3 months, and in the end lived for three more years. And as we went through this process, myself and her together, it was very deep and very profound. And when we sat with the doctor, who said, "You see, your cells have forgotten who they are, and they need to remember," we were like, "You're so right." And we're both in this holy encounter with this one. These are mechanisms, whatever is coming in front of you, whether it's a storm or a sunny day, they are just mechanisms to show you how you feel about yourself and to draw you into encounters with seeming others, because this is a path of relationship, including with the one that you believe yourself to be, into encounters that as you allow yourself to be without judgment with this self or other, you'll experience yourself differently. The spirit has it all planned, and our plans only interfere with the spirit's plans. And so that surrender that 135 is asking us from activating the past, planning the future, or organizing the present, doesn't mean that you won't allow yourself to come into a state where you're taking care of things in your life. It's just you won't decide what it is that really needs to be taken care of. You know, if you suddenly one day decide that it feels really sparkly to drive and see a grandchild, that will happen. If it feels inspiring to have them come stay with you, it will happen. But if you want to be the grandmother with those ones, then you're being kept away until you see that won't be the most loving way you can be in those holy encounters. If you insist on being the grandmother and inserting ourselves into the story with that agenda, because it's an agenda, or the false responsibility when we see someone we love very much struggling with something and it not seeming to improve, and the panic that rises in everyone, you know, that moment where we go, yeah, I'm maybe scared of a false dependency coming on me, or someone suffering and me witnessing to it and doing nothing. I'm scared that I'm not enough. And we see that really there's a focus on ourselves that is being avoided by focusing on this sense of other. And so whether it's a little bit of your spine that you've had a spinal tap on, or it's a bit of your elbow, or it's your cat, or it's your beloved relation, or it's that lovely little grandchild that you love joining with, the spirit is trying to restore us to a sense of really, from where are we relating? Because it's your attitude that speaks in the mind, and you can't hurt or harm anyone. You can't, like our last question, you can't hurt or harm anyone. If you misperceive yourself, though, you will be trial and error, and it'll be all error, out who you are by trying to imagine what they need from you. And you can't, because all they need from you is you remembering who you are. And from there, whatever is naturally seeming helpful in the scene, think of it like a movie, will unfold. And so you're relieved, your love extends to those ones. And first, especially with our fourth question, your love must extend to you first. It's so wonderful to have it exposed in this way. The short version is I keep going back to the very same painful and fearful experience over and over. I fear people will see I am a liar and a fraud. Do you understand this is an awakening symptom? This is actually something incredibly valuable. This is a reflection of not wanting the tension anymore between the truth of who you are and this image that sees yourself as ... whatever you insert. In this case, a liar, a fraud, someone who doesn't know how to forgive, a person who doesn't know how to forgive. instead of the mind accepting forgiveness. And think of myself as worthless, even though I represent myself as I can do this, whatever that is. You know what? It's been done for you. Whatever it is that you are all thinking about in your mind, it's already been done for you. The trial and error has been done for you. And now we just want to come back into the acceptance of the correction. And again, the correction in the Course means innocence, seeing you're mistaken, that it's not your fault, that it's not anyone else's fault either, that you're just confused about who you are. So let's just take a moment to pray and pause on where we are now. And then I'm going to go deeper into clarifying questions, but I'm also going to see what else is helpful for drawing this all together, because we're on the Spirit's time here. There isn't a plan I have for sure. Moments before we come together, new pieces get given to me out of nowhere. So even as I sit here, you can tell I'm sitting here going, what now? Because I don't perceive that there's someone who needs something or is in lack. I am absolutely certain in the truth of who you are and the truth of who I am, and it being the one self. And so I go by exactly how I'm feeling. And yet we will have clarifying questions, so they'll be so welcome, okay? So just take a moment to see where you're at right now, just to tune in. Okay, so the Spirit said, let's just talk a little more about forgetting one's function, because that is the key to the movement in the mind from these seeming stories to how can I truly serve? How can I be truly helpful? Which is what all of you would like to be. And it's such a great prayer, because in every moment, if something's facing you and you're feeling distressed and you're feeling compromised and you're feeling under pressure, especially if there's a time pressure seemingly on you and there's results coming back that seem to be saying, uh-oh, there's a problem and it's imminent and it's dangerous and you should be afraid, then what you want to do is restore yourself to, okay, well, what is my responsibility in response to even what I'm seeing? Instead of deciding what we think things should be like, we decide we don't know, and we ask the Spirit, what is a helpful response to this? How can this serve? Because there's nothing going wrong on the screen. It's just a reflection of a state of mind that's being held, and it's an attitude adjustment that we need. Nothing in form needs to change unless it comes after the attitude adjustment from a natural flow of joy and inspiration. So that's very important, and I can hear that from many of you are asking, because you've played that one out before. So now you only want to move from joy and inspiration. So that's a good sign. Good sign. Okay, so forgetting one's function. One's function is to remember that you are not responsible for yourself, the character, the image that's here on the screen. You are not responsible for other images on the screen. If everything is the past, I really want you to picture this for a moment. Over long ago, what is it you imagine you could do that could change how you feel, except change your mind? There isn't anything in form you could do that would make you feel better. There isn't anything you could do that could make anyone else feel better. I know it looks in the play that way, but really it's a change of mind about your mind that occurs that allows the screen to somehow then change in reflection. Now, I also don't want you to be hanging out there hoping the screen changes in reflection. I want you to give your desires for a very happy relation who used to be depressed. I want you to give that to Spirit. I'd really love if he was happy. I notice I have a preference and desire. No problem, hand that over. I'd really like this body that I experience myself to be, I'd like it to be supremely healthy, mobile, whatever the ideas are. Hand that over. Because if we don't hand it over, it becomes a block to who you are feeling good right now. Right now, not in the future when test results change or don't change. Right now, you're so worthy of feeling good right now and relieved of the idea that you can impact this in some way externally. Now, you may be sent on many happy doings and undoings. You may be the light of the party when you go into the hospital. You may be the light of the world when you go visit your relation. You may be the light of the world when you go visit those small children who are just delighted to see you and spend a few hours with you. You may be experienced as that. Or you may be the one who shows up and has those small children comfort you like one did for me today. You may be playing the role of the one who shows up and says, I don't know what to do anymore. I'm very afraid of all of what's happening to this body of mine. And you may be the one who meets that really lovely nurse and that wonderful doctor and that orderly, or the person just delivering flowers from Interflora. You might be that one. You see, you have to allow yourself to play all the characters that might be given for you for the mind to awaken and not judge the characters and what they're doing and how it looks. On that day, you may be the one who says to your relation, I'm actually worried about you. And they turn around, they cheer you up. You don't know who you're to be in the moment. And so you can't judge how it looks. You can't judge it. Well, you can, but it won't make you happy. And it doesn't really help you honor what is being asked of you. Isn't that incredible? Because remember this, cross. That's what the invite was. You can't hurt me. It's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry about how it looks. You didn't, no problem here. Nothing to see. You didn't do anything wrong. Now, that only comes with a resurrection in mind. And for Jesus in the story, that happened before anything looked untowards coming towards him. That resurrection mind was there. There wasn't suffering or pain. And so what you're looking for is peace and restoration of awareness. It is very terrifying if at every moment we are terrified of being exposed as not being good enough, as not being who we claim to be, as not being good at forgiveness. And I really feel, and I have to say that the person who wrote the fourth question was one of the major inspirations for this entire show. So I want that one to listen to me right now and understand that you have no idea how you can best serve. The little character can best serve. You understand that acceptance of forgiveness is your function. But the little character self and how that's going to look, nearly all of the forgiveness you will ever accept is on behalf of that one and the idea that it's you and that it should be in any way different. In any way. The person who asked this fourth question for us today is the one who gave us this heart-opening opportunity. The rawness of the expression this person gave at another time that I joined with her is what opened the doorway for us all to be here right now in this space to receive this clarity and be called into this function. And what is it? What is our function? Acceptance. Acceptance. Oh yeah, it's not me. That little image. I can just let it do what it's doing right now. Oh, watch it. Adorable. Look at it trying hard. Look at it. Oh my God. And that's forgiveness. So I always say you might need to be the screaming harden in the corner for a while before the mind can go, oh yeah, that's not me at all. You know what I was thinking? It might actually serve better than your I'm so good and pious act. And it will allow you to restore to holiness, the truth of who you are in your mind. So What are the form answers for any of these questions? There aren't any. What is the mind answer for any of these questions? The capital A answer that we really all want and we've come together for in such devotion, I have to say, and in such gratitude, I also feel. What is the answer? The answer is the gentle acceptance, kindness, love. It's the opposite, you see, of all the self-hatred that allows you to accept everything exactly as it is. You do not have to like it. You do not have to love it. You do not have to want it to continue. But in your moment of accepting it exactly as it is, you release yourself from that false responsibility. You can hand the entire picture over because you're not picking and choosing between elements to the spirit and say, I have no idea what to do with that. I just feel, and focus on how you feel, what you think, what you believe, what you desire, and then just hand all that over as well. And just be relieved that it's already done and it's not up to you, even to make yourself feel better. You are responsible for how you feel, but you can't convert or change or shift that. You can only offer up that you do not like how you feel and invite the spirit to choose for God for you. There is so little asked of us. It's very humbling. And we are ragged from trying. And yet all of the shifts through inspiration and guidance that you've all described actually in your questions too, that you've been following, really will relieve you and have allowed you to move forward. So changes in form are changes in form necessary in the lives of a teacher of God, it says in the course. And it says, well, to an advanced teacher of God, that's an unnecessary question because it's a change in mind that's needed. But from there, it is very natural that it will seem like things shift in form. You don't need to keep saying to Jesus every day, you're standing on my toe. You don't need to keep forgiving him because standing. You might just actually need to stand and say, actually, I noticed that I believe I'm in pain because I believe you're standing on my toe. This people pleasing, this trying to contain ourselves, control our emotions, that's not needed. I have discovered time and time again that it's in the release and the speaking really as I feel that releases the tension that we've been speaking about in the mind and allows the miracle to come in. It's a play. Whether you come from any form of theatrical background or you just like watching Netflix, it's a play. It's a movie. You're just one of the characters, but how you feel, how the mind feels, the one watching, is very important because it's like the film that goes through the projector. And it's those beliefs and desires and feelings and thoughts that are showing up on the screen to bring awareness to taking care of that level of awareness. Yes, so I feel like we have time for whatever we need to have time for. If there's any clarifying questions, we did try and do a lot today, seemingly. But even I, kept stepping back from as if that was true. So if we can bring up everyone here, we'll just have a look at our full gallery. And I just want to see if there are any clarifying questions, because I don't have a time limit on myself, and it's still okay if anyone needs to go to bed and wants to come back and watch the replay, but I'm right here, so let's do it. Are there any questions? And we'll go for a physical raising of a hand. I'll tell you why. It's just easier for us to, if there's more than one asking, to get clear and see that one. So I'm trying to see if I can make sure I can move between everyone here. I don't think I have a full view yet. It says 18, but I don't see 18. Okay, I can see you all now. So be courageous. Ask again, because it will come through really strong and clear and loving and kind and a witness to what you really want. Okay, I'm going to start with Sue. Sue Oliver, top left. Tie-dye.
I'm in a Ben and Jerry's t-shirt tonight. It's hard to see someone in pain, though. I mean, but that's what you would probably say is that that's the invitation. That's the first indication that there's some meaning to that I'm putting on the picture. I'm believing in pain. Is that what you would say? Oh.
Thank you. I can stay unmuted for all this. I'll be very quiet, just to my team. So you can unmute Sue as well. You can hear me now, Sue, okay?
Yes, thank you.
I can hear you too. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that initial pull, when I think of my person in pain, it's like, whoa, you know, it's like a river that takes me and I get sad. Is that an indication that I'm still believing in pain and guilt?
Well, you're sad. It's that simple. You're sad. You're upset because of what you perceive you're seeing. And so we have to work with you. You're the only one we can bring straight to the Holy Spirit in this moment. You're upset at seeing. It doesn't really fill in the blank. It doesn't matter what you think you saw. You're upset. And that one is bringing awareness to you that there's an upset already there. I know one seems to come before the other, but it's actually the reverse. The upset was there, and this absolutely benevolent imagery showed up to show you there was a distress or a concern or a hurt or a fear. You know, a lot of that something couldn't be maintained, that a state of mind couldn't be maintained, you know, that someone could flounder and not be helped, not be helpable even, which, you know, is where I hear the distress is really come from. So we must just look at your distress about that. That's it. That's the entire function of forgiveness for you, is just to accept the you feel upset. So in the noticing, and that's when we do a levels of mind, it really helps us notice, oh yeah, I'm upset about that. It's not that it's so tragic over here that I'm upset. I'm actually just upset because in the state of depression that this person is in, they're almost incapable of being in heightened emotions around it. It's just kind of zoning out on them. And so symbolically, they're just showing you a concern that you have, that you just need to bring to the spirit. And it actually is that simple for all of us.
Right.
We have a concern about someone else or how we'll come across. It's the same. I have a distress, and we go to the spirit.
Would you say that we're really fearful of our relationship with Jesus? I mean, is that what I'm really afraid of, going to spirit?
Well, I always like to work in the affirmative with the spirit, because the spirit just like is like, you just come into me and I'm gonna give it all to you. Like, that red dress looks awesome on you. I'm never going to say those blue pants, ooh, they do not look good, do not wear those. The spirit really, you know, if you're hearing guidance, you're hearing it in the affirmative, and it's never going to be something that's going to make it harder to come. So it's not going to be a focus on a fear of the intimacy. I would say here, it's a craving for intimacy with Jesus, with the spirit. I don't see the fear. I see a craving for intimacy with it. It just gets misplaced or displaced through a misdirected miracle impulse. And so the spirit's like, oh, I'll take it. I'll take all the desire for intimacy, care, love, boldly speaking about things, you know, uncovering the truth. And I'll see that offering, and I raise you holiness. I raise you holiness. And I invite you into that with me, rather than thinking it as separate or something else or another time or another space.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's intimately aware and present now. And there is nothing we can do or teach or share with someone else. We can only allow it for ourselves. And if they ever lean in to you to share or ask something, well, of course you'd answer from the spirit, not from a concerned relative, you know, which is not the most helpful state, as you can imagine. So that's wonderful, Sue. Thank you very much for your question and your clarifying question. I'm sure everyone can feel the relief of what you just asked. It's very helpful.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you. Does anyone else have? I always want to check fresh again after we clarify something, in case it clarified it. But if there's more, if there's any other question on anything that was asked, remember, you might be more able to ask that question even on behalf of one of the questioners, those clarifying questions. So don't hold back. Laura Bryant. We have two Lauras now. And welcome, Laura. By the way, this is Laura's first time with us today, and it's so lovely to have her with us. So very lovely to have you with us, Laura.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
It's kind of a mix of a clarifying question and just really gratitude for everything that is happening. The last satsang, you mentioned some things and I've been writing about them. And then in this satsang, all those things seem to come up. It's just such a reflection of the one mind. And it's so awesome. And I'm seeing that very clearly. And I also realized that there is a deep fear in, well, first of all, when I hand things over to Holy Spirit, I realized that there was still a wishing, like I have a desire to lose weight. Mm-hmm. You had said that it's in the handing over to the Spirit that the individual, the specific desires seem to dissolve, and you can see the unified purpose. And when I re-listened to that, I felt it. And I also realized that I had this belief that in giving it over to the Spirit, that the Spirit would then change my behavior, which would then change the form. So I saw all that and yeah, exactly. I'm like, nope. And I'm like, no, it's about present moment peace. So, but there is a deep fear there that if the form doesn't change, that I will never reach consistent peace. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of just putting it on the altar and kind of asking, is that true? You know, it's a doubt thought that's coming up.
Yeah, let's look at that for a second, because everyone here can identify with what you're sharing in my crossed fingers. And the image, as we've been describing, the image and how we would like to see the image before the mind deigns to be peaceful. So tell me, Laura, so let's not mute her just yet, okay? Tell me, Laura, when you're thin, you're exactly the perfect shape that you imagine would bring supreme happiness to you and everyone who gazes upon you. Tell me how you would feel.
I imagine I would feel ecstatic.
Okay. So when you say to me anything about a description of how Laura would like to see the little body of Laura looking, what you're really saying to me is, I'd like to feel ecstatic. Now.
Yes.
When I make it that high, as you did, ecstatic, I'd like to feel ecstatic now. Can you feel how that's kind of a lie?
That I'd like to feel it now?
Yeah, that you'd like to feel ecstatic. if the only purpose of the good body is to so you can feel ecstatic, and I say, oh, I can just give you that right now. I can make you feel ecstatic right now. Can you feel a little gap, the tension?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's the work. Nothing to do with the body. Nothing. Then you can be really relieved going, of course, wow, if it's too scary to feel ecstatic right now, of course the body can't even cooperate in Laura's plan. No wonder Laura is still because she's still holding it as the, well, I promise though, you know, you can't make me feel ecstatic. You can't make me. You can't force me to feel ecstatic. You can't relieve me of my time and space component to, you know, dieting, shopping, whatever. And so you see what the purpose of it is for. Safety in the mind. Feel safer this way. And you don't even have to be mad at yourself for that then. You can be much more aware and understanding, oh, I actually feel safer. I actually feel safer that lots of other people need my help. And I have a long list of people, say, for example, to help before I get to put any attention on myself or my own mind. I have lots of relations and family and grandchildren and children who I could go and insert myself into their lives, which the Spirit's not letting me do because I actually want peace, and it'd be a distraction the way I want to do it, not in truth. They're all welcome and part of everything we do. There's a gap. We don't see that the way it is perfect. In the Bible and in the Course, it says you cannot take someone's crutch away from them because it's what makes them feel safe. So however you look and however you feel about it is one of the greatest gifts you've ever given to yourself for feeling safe. In this way, in this moment. It doesn't have to stay that way. The feeling safe part. The feeling safe could come from being ecstatic soon.
And in essence, the form may never change, but that doesn't matter because I'll be at peace anyway.
It's a red lobster. It's a ruse. That's a term, a red herring, sorry.
I knew what you meant.
The red herring is something, and it's the ego device that keeps us completely distracted and like a murder mystery book, looking in the wrong direction instead of the thing that's plainly in front of us. Is that we'd rather be distracted by something because the acceptance of the intimacy and the love, which is also usually a component of, you know, the feeling beautiful. There's a fear of it. So it's always a present fear, not a future fear we're afraid of. And so it's also a present intimacy that's always offered, not a future intimacy or a future self-acceptance. The self you need to accept, you see, isn't Laura. So you don't have to improve how you even feel about Laura. You can be well aware of your judgments about body thoughts and everything. God knows I've served that for many people, including this self over the years with the fluctuations. I'm like, okay, this is obviously how you pictured me and how I could serve you best for awakening today at your service. You know, I always say I'm a 10 for awakening. That's my purpose. So again, perfect, like literally perfect, and so beautiful and so earnest in the offering of that oneself. But let's not get distracted from what's really being invited, because you see, what's going to really destroy that little self-concept in the end, the ego's idea of you, is that you were just so adorable all along that it couldn't interfere. These delay mechanisms we put in, whether it's helping other people, being over embroiled in family, financial, multiple people situations, doesn't matter what it is, none of them are wrong, but it's as if we could keep love away with them. That's really all we're trying to do, instead of saying, hand over even that hot mess that you think they are or you are, and give it to the Spirit to use for coming into the intimacy. Because it's not what you think. I know, at least in my own story, it was at my absolute largest coming into an acceptance of intimacy and being loved. It just blew my mind. because I wasn't meeting, and again, the conditions for fear that would have said I was now acceptable. And that's why, you know, films like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days are great, because she goes on a mission to blow him away with all of the things, the wrong things to do. And it doesn't work because there's something else happening here that is at such a different level. So you hand the preference over and you say, I would still love that. You never have to stop saying, I would still love that. Except you want to accept now what you think in the meantime you're being denied. You want to accept that you can receive that experience now. So that's why I say that's the problem with all manifesting, all those lists. No, you want to choose how you want to feel at the top of it. And you choose it with rules for decision every day. You want to feel like you belong, included, intimate, loved, beloved, beautiful. And that means is just another word for innocent and acceptable. Really, the word beautiful.
So it is possible to actually have an experience of peace in the present moment. And the only thing, if I am hating myself, this Laura image, then I am not in the present moment. I'm focused on the image.
I'm saying that can't interfere. Hate on all you want.
Okay. Okay.
I'm saying also choose to feel, what was your word?
Ecstatic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Choose it first. You see, it's the making it conditional. That's the gap. That's the timeline. It's you're making it conditional. It's like, I could just feel ecstatic. Even thinking about myself looking that way, I could just feel ecstatic now. And then therefore there you are, ecstatic. There is no image out front, Laura. There's no image. What you're seeing isn't a representation of even what anyone else sees. There's nothing else there. It's a state of mind everyone's responding to. There is no reality. There's no shared reality at all. You have no idea what we're seeing. RIP department, RIP department.
I watched that.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yes.
So that feels good for now. That's something to sit with, but it applies to everything. It's like, I'm not good at forgiveness yet. What if that's exposed? Well, what if it's exposed that you're a humble learner who makes lots of mistakes and has discovered the Spirit loves you? Well, you know what? That's exactly what forgiveness is. And you know what? That's exactly what following guidance is about. Everyone who's trying to get it right, they're at nothing. If you're willing to be making mistakes and the emotions are popping out all over the place and it's wild and unencumbered and you can't even suppress them, welcome to transparency. Nothing will show you are not the character swifter than transparency. Everybody thinks transparency is about like a willingness to let the mask down and share or expose something about themselves. And yeah, sure, at the beginning it seems like that, until you lose complete control of the illusion that you could decide what was coming across, because you realize it's an attitude in the mind. You literally have no control over what's being seen. And with mighty companions like these, all they're hearing is your attitude in the mind. What you're saying and the nice smile you have on, the measured voice, they won't hear it. That's not what they're hearing. They're hearing the attitude in the mind of how you think of yourself. That's how you're coming across. Wow, it's such a relief though, because all of this control and measuredness and politeness and PC, and please, PC, you cannot do it. You'll just, that is just not your calling, to try and spend the rest of your life considering what some other imaginary character you've made to reinforce yourself will think of you as long as you behave a certain way. Wow, that's like, so we just want to come back to, you cannot mess this up. And it's not what you think. It's just so different from what you think. I just love to think of our friend by the lake. I love to think of her having gotten moved out of the moldy apartment, that didn't feel good already, having had these seeming symptoms move her into this beautiful new space, having had these other symptoms, allow her to relinquish a job that already didn't feel aligned. I allow it. It allowed her to have the courage. It gave her the safety to do what she was being called to do for ages. So that these symptoms, whether they look like the numbers go up or the numbers go down in some way, I have this immense gratitude for what it's facilitating in the mind, and the love that it's allowing to come towards her, and the companions that she's getting to discover, and the intimacy that's possible, and the clarity of what the course is really saying. That for someone who's only a first year student, you know, it's a constant deep undoing for all of us. Just to be clear, a humbling of how little is needed and what is the truth of what's asked of us. And when we've all been healers and carers in our lives, it's even harder, because we don't want to let go of the idea that we were helpful to someone once. And yet, in a way, we must, if we're to be truly helpful to our real sense of self now. We must let go of any idea that we need an interaction that will cure or fix us, instead of one that's benevolent and will allow us to see the perfection of who we are in this moment. Absolutely gorgeous, absolutely perfect. Nothing has gone wrong. Everything is coming. All visuals are coming as a support. Even pain is a communication to say that there could be a kinder way of treating ourselves in our mind, the way we're thinking of ourselves, and you'll start to become more attentive. There'll be a harsh contracting thought there. The pain isn't coming from, you know, the spinal tap. The pain isn't coming from the meds not being aligned any more than it was for me. That's what I eventually saw. But while they were all on offer and these were the avenues, I followed them and I opened my mind and I asked for help. And it's very important to ask for help and to be like a small child that can just say, today I feel sad, sore, this doesn't feel good. And then what is our one function? Our one function is to ask the Spirit how this can serve for awakening, not in making us somehow better later or keeping us in pain, but ask us what the Spirit is drawing our awareness and attention to. The sharpness is just to get our attention. It's not meant to be something that prolongs. And so we eventually learn not to learn through pain, and we learn through being a happy learner. So I would say the orientation would be, by all means, if it feels inspiring, the meds are there. If it feels inspiring, all of the other holy encounters are there. And you don't know what any are for. You don't know who you'll be meeting wherever you go. But your function and your purpose every day is, how can I serve? How can I serve? Here I am. How can I serve? I can move one little finger. How can I serve? I can move nothing. How can I serve? It's not about a doing or an action or even a meeting people or a healing or helping like we used to in the past. It really is a state of mind. How can I serve? And like Sue just showed us, by taking all of the hurt that's there and bringing it direct to the Spirit, by knowing you're a small child of God, by knowing it's not up to you and it's not even your job. So how could you do it? You're just to hand it over and be relieved of this intensity and this distress. And whatever is beneficial for that, warm baths, massages, whatever the Spirit will bring in as these ways of serving. How can you serve? Say, you could take a warm bath. That's how you can serve. Oh, great. I'll happily do that on behalf of the whole universe, and see it as the highest service. Whatever it is we're asked to do in every moment, feel ecstatic. Whatever it is, that is the highest service. Just allow it. Just be absolutely rebellious and allow the ecstatic feelings to come up. So, yeah, the people pleasing, all of that just washes away when you realize you're the only people you're trying to please. It's your own self-concept you're trying to please, your idea and your conditioning of what you expect from yourself. And honestly, you're going to have to fail that list. You're going to have to fail that list, because why? Like we spoke before, it's too low a bar. It's too low. How do you know that your anger in a moment is not what serves? The Course doesn't say anger is never justified. It says anger is never justified, as in you can't justify it. It doesn't say you're never allowed to be angry. Your knee-jerk reaction to something and your snippiness could be exactly what jolts the mind awake and allows someone to come into a fresh way of relating with you instead of a staid, polite. emotions held back. How do you know it would serve? You can't know. You couldn't possibly know. I was once on a plane coming back from New York after a massive retreat, and lots of our people were on the plane, but then there was an entire group of 40 children who were all 9 to 12, and they'd been on a 3-week trip with their teachers. Their teachers were exhausted at the end of 3 weeks with this age group. They all sat up the front and just completely didn't want to know what the kids were doing. And I remember my partner sitting beside me was getting really bothered by what the kids were doing. They were loud, they were throwing things, they were, bopping around, they were excited, 9-year-olds. And I'm like, really, it doesn't bother me at all. I'm not bothered by them. I feel really good about it. I just think they're adorable. And that was just true in that moment. 5 seconds later, I undid my safety belt, stood up and pointed at all of them and said, sit down, sit down, sit down now, put your safety belt on. Sat down and really sheepishly put my own safety belt on. And my partner looked at me going what? I'm like, I have no idea. And then bam, we hit massive turbulence. And these are small, light children, they would have gone flying. Massive turbulence. And they'd all sat down already. Was I angry? No. Was I annoyed? No. But would it have sounded like that to a 9-year-old? Probably, absolutely. But would it have been helpful? Yes. So you can't control how the character is to be utilized for you to be able to come into this sense of relief. You're going to have to trust the play of awakening. You're going to have to trust how it unfolds. You're going to have to trust that it unfolded really, really, really well, like all 10 years of Friends. Then you can't mess it up. It's in the can, everyone. You can't mess this up. Just a real tuning in now for the feeling ecstatic, the feeling the intimacy, the feeling loved, the accepting the relief and the bringing of the heartache. It doesn't matter how long it takes, how many tears, bringing of that heartache to the spirit, sitting with the spirit, being taken care of. It's essential. And if you have never done it for yourself, you will never believe the spirit can do it for someone else, you see. Now, the spirit is in charge of the plan of awakening for everyone. Belief is not required. It is your acceptance of the atonement that blasts that through to the entire sonship. And you've already done it. We're just here to accept together that we did that, and it worked out wonderful. And so your job's not to preserve your body or make it last a long time. Your function is just to accept the truth of who you are and love on that little one that's out front, that seems to be you, that makes mistakes, faux pas, that rubs people up the wrong way, that's in pain, that seems to need a lot of care. For me, I once put my back out, and I remember someone standing over me shouting at me that did I not accept it was all my mind? And I remember lying there thinking, I do. That's still not changing what the body's doing right now, though. It's still like this, you see. So anyway, that person stormed off, left me on the floor. So I was like, okay. And then the one I was to work with for this walked in the door and said, how are you? Are you okay? Can I help you in any way? And I had been a helper for years and had never needed seemingly much help after getting over the depression. And I said, oh, well, I think this might help. And she slowly worked me off the floor, helped me sit back on my honkers, then helped me roll over. And we laughed many times because the weird angles that I was feeling might work for getting me off the floor and that she had to help me with were very intimate. And, and she got me off the floor and took me into my bed, and she stayed with me for 3 nights and slept in the same bed as me because I could not even turn myself over or help myself to get out to go to the toilet. Well, do you know what? I had this massive heart opening. And that's what it was for. So all of this judgment, as if things should be some idealized way of perfection, that is all the ones who came to Jesus. What brought them there? Seeming illnesses and form. What brought me to the spirit and to my knees was the depression. I'm so grateful for it stopping me short because my mind refused basically to continue the way things had been. They were terrible. The world was not it didn't feel right to me. And I was correct about that. I just needed to discover why, you know. I needed to understand why. I didn't need to live up to what I'd been trying my whole life to do. I needed to be allowed to have a space for all the anger and the rage to come up. And it was being suppressed, because that's what depression is. It's a suppression of anger and rage. You might not be aware of it in any shape or form, but that's what it is. So this is a common, all welcome, come back in home experience for all of us. This is a very intimate experience, and it's not about getting it right. That's all I can share with you. It's about allowing it to be however it is, and just seeing thematically what's really showing up and how I feel about it. That's all that matters, how I feel, what I think, what are my beliefs, what are my desires, and then just, again, handing those over, because they still belong to the little image self, remember. You don't want to get hung up and trying to fix them. Same mistake again. So, yeah, I just want to look around at all of you for a moment. Suzanne, Susan, Austin, Barbara, Chris, Laura Bryant, Mary S, Marguerite, who stays up late in Holland, who we love very much. And then there's the Live ACIM team. We've got Denise over in Ireland, who also stays up late. We've got Leslie. Hello, Leslie. I'm not sure where in the world you're from, but I love seeing your face every week. And Janice Bowie, who's just always glowing. And I often find my two Janices sometimes sit together on my screen. Our other Janice had to go. And then we've got Laura. We've got Sue. Laura's in North America. Sue is in England. Celia, I think, is in Florida or up near the Great Lakes. You're in Florida? Okay. So lovely to have you with us. Really, really beautiful. We've got Christopher, who's somewhere between Utah and San Francisco. We're not sure where, but he's an enigma anyway, and we just love him as he is. So it feels, if there's anyone left out that's on another screen, I'm not seeing it, I apologize. But I just want to say thank you. We embraced quite a wide seeing of our mind today. There are no people. Look at all these little characters. Aren't they blessed? Like, they're just playing it out for us. Hey, there's Susan Austin. Oh, love you, Susan. Everyone do a heart for Susan. I just want a heart for Susan. I just want, she's always doing mahalo and hangout, and then she's always doing a heart. Hearts for Susan. You're crying, my love. We love you very much. We love you very much. Yeah. Now we're all clear on what all these little characters are for. We won't worry about what they're doing. We'll just do whatever feels like the next indicated thing for all of them, you know, and help them along. So I just want to join you all in the gift of today, and thank you very much for all your help and support. And thank you for the gifts that have come. Yeah, thank you, everyone. It's been a long episode, but we were all in this together. So thank you very much. I see.